Hello, how are you going?
Doing all right. Been a
Uh,
long day.
was today your day off?
It's been mixed up. It's
Ah,
Easter weekend. Um, so I had coworker went off to his father's 60th, so I covered for him. And we had a nice afternoon barbecue after work at some friends' house, which was cool because it
yeah.
was like a mansion built in the 1900s.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, yeah, like a borderline castle kind of place. It was awesome. Old homestead.
Yeah, mine was
Everyone's
more,
so rich here.
my day was more weather dramatic. There was plans to go sailing, but the regatta was, at least this day of the regatta was cancelled because the wind was too strong and everyone was too scared to go out for fear of breaking bits of their boats. And there were enough races already to decide who won, so people were like, yeah, nah, we're
Right.
good.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started picking up here in the afternoon. I guess you guys got that early in the morning.
Yeah, well, it was about 20 knots, which is say 45 k, which is starting to get to the limit of most people saying, "Yeah, I don't want to take my boat out and that something will break."
Yeah, stuff gets pretty hectic in storms. I saw a storm sweep up I think there was the Littleton Harbour once, and all the boats were like heading in a mad rush, and there was one sitting out, and then it just fucking mast just got snapped straight in half off the bat. You just watched it go crack and then fell down.
Oh yeah, yeah. We've been
Yeah,
out in like 100 k wind on Lake Aviemore, which that was good
yeah, I
fun.
don't know.
Yeah, Alpine Lake.
They'll never change.
Yeah, yeah, you work up to it slowly. You don't start out going out in that wind. You go out and slightly stronger, then slightly stronger, then slightly stronger, and then it's like, yeah, we know how to handle this. We're not going to make much progress, but we're not going to sink either, and we know how much we can do in that.
That's how you learn, eh?
Yeah, yeah, but then keeping an eye every now and again on the circus of the world. Saudi's cut their oil production a bit, and that's got to have
Oh, have
fun
they?
consequences. Yeah, another million barrels a day down. That's 1%.
Mm. Well, it'll keep going until people learn. You know,
Learn to do without it, or
no, learn that doing without it isn't actually good.
oh, in
This is
that
all a
sense.
response to you know, we don't need oil. Oil's bad. It's like, well, try and live without it and see how far you get.
I'm
And
not.
when people start paying the price, they're gonna like go, oh, maybe I was wrong.
Mm, yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm not. I don't have enough certainty to tip my scales all the way in that direction. I'm
But you're still
confused.
all on the oh, okay. Confused is better than all on the train of the environmentalist stuff. I haven't talked about that in a while. Actually, I was meaning to ask you how that was going
In terms of my
because
own opinions of it.
yeah, because we sort of had a big deep dive into your perspective and
Yeah,
the positive vision stuff early on.
a thought I had on that was that you were pointing out that a society that's able to manage itself and is well put together could have much more people on the planet than we have now. And in that society, resource limits wouldn't be a big issue because people would manage things intelligently, but that the society we have is not that. And
So
like, so trying to
yes,
decide on an ideal population size is pointless because our society can't is not sufficiently functional to decide on, or internally disciplined, however you describe it. It couldn't aim at a certain population size as a whole,
I
apart
think the
from.
idea of aiming at a number is pretty evil,
Hmm.
personally. Like, there's something about that that's really dangerous. Like, who are you to decide how many humans get to exist?
Hmm.
And, what about the rest of them?
I think
Or the
it's
inverse, what if there's not enough?
it's very
That gets out of
dangerous
hand.
there
Yeah.
are societies that have functioned with that as a lived reality, and I'm thinking of the Inuit, or I think the example is the Kalahari Bushmen, but basically people living on the edge of survival, where everyone knows that one unproductive mouth to feed could pull everyone under.
That's not the same as X number of people was bad though. That's different. And that was always to my point when we had those
Hmm.
arguments, which is like an extra person is a benefit, not a liability in terms of food, as long as they're productive.
Mm, yes. So the way that those societies would deal with that was that when a member of the tribe became unproductive, they would commit a form of voluntary suicide. So for the Kalahari Bushmen, that was everyone would build up a fire and then say goodbye to their elderly loved one and then walk off. And then sometime later, the animals would eat that elderly loved one because they couldn't defend themselves once the fire was out. And then the tribe continued and lived. And for the Inuit, it was put the elderly one on an ice floe, push them off, wave goodbye lovingly and tearfully, because if they didn't, then everyone would die. And this was the way that everyone would end up dying as they got old and too old to contribute. And that was a very harsh reality, and that's how they faced it. But if you don't have to do that, you wouldn't do that to your much loved grandmother.
Hmm. I
But it
can't help
was,
but think about a situation with uh, pensions and aging population in relation to that,
mm,
because we're not sophisticated enough to have a discussion about such things.
yeah, well, there is the trust these days as well for institutionally assisted suicide.
Yeah, I wonder why that showed up. Same with like the, you know, totally natural virus that emerged that specifically targeted elderly and overweight people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I have a feeling like on a sort of socio-psychological level, our society is slightly senile.
No,
Not
no,
as
we're willfully blind.
willfully
Like,
blind as opposed to senile. Hmm.
well, yeah, yeah, because we know what topics not to talk about. This is my point with people all the time. Like, we think that we're these super advanced people. Whenever I meet someone who's like, yeah, we're, you know, the modern day, aren't we so wise and our ancestors are so stupid? You know, all it takes is one question about like, hey, why don't we talk about genetics for 5 minutes? Just dead silence. No one's touching that shit ever. Like, yeah, we're sophisticated and advanced. Our ancestors talked about that stuff all the time because they were sophisticated, and we're not. You know, we're not going to have that conversation.
That's an interesting concept about the taboos in society. That because every society has their taboos, but those are normal. I feel like, or at least I have the impression that in a lot of older societies it was more this is a thing that you do not do. You do not be disrespectful on the mountain that we revere as our god. You do not like the way in Maori culture the head is tapu. You do not violate that tapu or sacredness of a loved one's head.
Hmm. Yeah, it was. I think a lot of okay taboo in a historical sense, as far as I'm concerned, were the things you weren't allowed to do because if you were allowed to do them, the society would collapse.
Hmm. Or the
And
last
just remember
person.
that we've like really gone into violating all of our society's taboos over the last 100 years.
Oh yeah, that's gone into overdrive recently. Just look at
Mm-hmm.
the Oscars where that guy dressed up as the devil and lots of girls dancing around him and so on. And it's like, okay,
I
look at
didn't know
that.
that happened.
Oh yeah, the show they had at the Oscars, they had um essentially a satanic ritual on stage in
I'm
drama
not
form.
surprised. I'm not surprised. The only thing I've seen from the Oscars ever was when Ricky Gervais got up and made fun of all of them for getting up and making their political speeches. It was just beautiful. If you haven't seen that, you got to watch that speech. He opened the Oscars with like, "Come up here, take your fucking award, shut up, and sit down. You're the most privileged person in the world. You don't get to make a comment about your personal political opinions." It was unbelievably harsh and to the point. And then everyone got up and did it anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, like they weren't changing this. It was great. But I'm not surprised at that at all. I mean, you know, like Bohemian Grove and all of that is almost the same kind of thing. They go there and do those rituals. They do it on the public stage. What's that gaslighting thing? That's always the case. Like, no, this isn't happening. Okay, it's happening, but it's very small and you shouldn't worry about it. Actually, it's happening and it's good and you're evil for calling it out.
Mm.
It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
It's a
like
matter of time until it's normal, and then when it's normal, it's accepted and you're not allowed to question it.
I've been trying to work out, well, I've been thinking about the idea of lines in the sand, and it's like, as a person, you need lines in the sand. They shouldn't be necessarily ironclad in the sense of uh, you might be wrong about something, and so sort of continue to evaluate them, but be aware, at least, this is being developed, of course, and so there's bits I'll be missing, but that, okay, here's a line in the sand. This thing that's happening now crosses that line in the sand that I made a while ago. Why did I make that line in the sand then? Why did I think that was a good place to put it? Does that still apply? As in, if it was the fundamental sanctity of human life or protecting children from things that are likely to damage them psychologically in the future, for example, and then you look at it, it's like, okay, yes, that still applies. Nothing here has changed those fundamentals. Then how do I act given that that line in the sand is being crossed? And more directly for me in a personal situation, it's like in trying to find a long-term partner, it's like, okay, what are my standards and lines in the sand for behavior and what makes sense? And it's like, yes, I don't know how a woman's mind works differently to mine, so there's allowance that should be made for the sort of more greater dominance of emotion in her mind. So it's not fair to expect her to act like me, but at the same time, I feel like some recognition on her part that she gets emotions. That doesn't mean that the emotions are objective truth. The difference between you made me feel bad versus I felt bad from that. Let's talk this out and work it out. And it could be a undealt with issue, or it could be, oh, that was a hurtful thing that I did. And I'm sorry, but you need to work it out and consider both possibilities. And yeah, the lines in the sand in personal relationships and society is one I'm working on as someone who shrinks from conflict and confrontation.
I think I think we've been encouraged, raised in the West to not have lines in the sand. Because think about it, the progressive types have been in charge of education for longer than we've been alive, certainly. I don't know,
Mm.
60 years or something. And their philosophy of existence is that culture moves forward and gets better over time. And that's like natural evolution, like the evolution of technology.
So the assumption is that whatever direction it's moving is better.
Well, I think the assumption is that there is a direction to culture,
Mm.
that culture evolves over time and gets better, which I actually don't think I agree with anymore.
Anymore.
Um,
You used to?
Well, we were all raised that way.
That's true.
Until I heard that statement and its comparison, I didn't think about it, but then I thought, you know what? Yes, I did raised with that assumption that like things were worse and now are better because people got better. And I don't think that's the case anymore. Anyway, I think we were raised to never have any lines in the sand so that everything that we hold sacred could be violated. I mean, can you think of a single line that hasn't been crossed in the Western world? Like we're still allowed to hold the lines in our personal life and make choices to avoid certain things. But it's hard to do that. And the lines for the culture itself have been crossed.
Because there are times when governments have used the crossing of lines by other governments as reasons for invading, but then you look at them and it's like, yeah, you did that too.
I mean internally though.
Hmm.
I mean citizens having lines and when someone else crosses it to clamp down on that.
As in the right to say, no, you've crossed this line of mine and I will react appropriately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah, the right to react has been delegated, forcefully or not, to the state.
Yeah. Yeah, people aren't allowed to enforce their own values or their own cultural values anymore. And that's because we're not allowed to have one set of cultural values for our countries anymore.
Mm.
And when that happens, anything goes. And if anything goes, then the worst things go all the time. Because people who are like, oh, really? I can do anything? Anything? Like they're going to do it. And if you call them out or try and stop them because what they're doing is like horrible, you're the one who goes to prison. Yay, we've liberated the oppressed.
Oh, how
You
oppressed the
know.
prisoners were. Oh, how oppressed the rapists were and the child molesters and
Mm-hmm.
the what are the
Yeah.
what's the fancy term they're trying to dress it up now? Minor attracted
Maps.
people.
Maps. Yeah. Apparently they have a flag now,
Oh, oh,
like a
good. Where can I
pride-related flag that's for pedophiles.
get it to burn it?
Mm. Yeah, like you're not allowed to um, be violent to stop people who are evil in the West. Not allowed. I got very angry not too long ago in a vein of this. Some guy was in the supermarket and decided that it'd be a great idea to walk around with the Soviet national flag on his t-shirt. You know, USSR's one.
Hmm.
And I was just looking at that and I was going, you know, let's take it back, I don't know, 50, 60 years. Say that, 70 years ago. If a guy was to walk around the Western, had supermarkets at the time, shopping centre, whatever, well, he'd be beaten in the streets by the men, and deservedly so. And I think that there is actually, it's so outside the Overton window these days, and that's on purpose. The idea that, a nation should have a culture and to step outside of the culture in the nation is something that is unacceptable. Not just by the law, but by the citizens.
Yeah, because what that's just thinking about the definition of nation. Like you have a nation
Careful
of
with that.
people.
You're going to get in trouble really quickly with that one.
Because you can have a
I mean,
nation.
we can do it.
Oh, it's tempting, but We do have
Yeah,
other stuff to
you
work
see
on.
exactly we're like one foot in the wrong place there. Here's the thing, you're not allowed to say that truth, are you?
I'm not sure which
Like,
truth you're referring to yet because I haven't worked it through.
what is a nation? Work
And
it through live on air and realize, and then tell me if you have the balls to say it or not.
well, let's try it. Let's
All right,
test that.
let's do. We're on Rumble, and I would love to get banned from YouTube, but we'll take a badge of honor.
Yeah, yeah. YouTube doesn't know my name on this, so yay. Um,
Neither.
what was it?
Well, actually, kind of.
So a nation, a nation can be accepting of internal variation. I'm just thinking like a nation celebrating some immigrants doesn't go against the concept of the nation in the sense of someone coming to a relatively homogenous nation and then you have a little party in a park for them and it's like, oh, this is new interesting food. Oh, these are new interesting clothes. Oh, that's all very interesting. And look, dear, I bought this nice little thing at the park, and that doesn't go against it. But at the same time, a
Give me your
nation.
example. What century are you envisioning?
Hmm.
Because you got to remember, like, nations have been around for a very long time. The
Hmm.
modern concept of a nation and the concept of a nation are not the same thing.
Yes. I'm okay. Would it have to be a We'll have examples of nations, as in culturally distinct groups of people meeting, and often that was in conflict and war, and there was a degree of dominance over one by the other, colonization, or they already knew each other very well, and either one admired the other or disliked the other, possibly in equal part. It'd be sort of like getting some kangaroo meat to try because that's an Australian thing, at least from a New Zealand perspective, and then having that in the restaurant as a sort of, oh, here's an interesting thing, or the latest fashion in France coming over to London versus nations that are in conflict. At its fullest extent, it's expressed in war, but that also is then reflected culturally, and you see elements of that in the sort of love hate brotherly relationship between New Zealand and Australia too,
I
where
think you've I think you said it without realizing that you said it.
culturally distinct groups of people,
Yeah.
and that you can't have uniformity of thought and culture without destroying one culture, and so there's the
You're seeing where it's getting dangerous.
yeah, to the official one, but my name's not on it.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay,
hope.
fair enough. But we're talking about taboos in our society. You know,
Yeah.
conversations about genetics is one, and the other one is a nation as a people.
Well, something I've been working on is the expression of my personal strength because different people have different ways of expressing their own strength and still working this all out, but that some people might be really good physically, but the version that I think is mine is I'm not going to play your silly game, which
Yeah, that's
through
Sigma.
because I've I've always found most social games confusing and I didn't get them. And
Okay, maybe that's more autism
does one feed
then.
the other?
Sorry, maybe, I don't know
Well,
because I always understood their games.
mm,
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. Seeing as we're getting a bit scary and dangerous there.
mm,
Um, when I was 19, 20, something like that, went to a family Christmas. and we smoked weed at the family Christmas,
What a family.
which was it's an interesting family. It was great. No, it was a good experience. All the old ladies sat inside and had tea and biscuits, and like the youngins went outside.
Okay.
It wasn't like hiding. We had
Mm,
a big ring of chairs, and it was the middle generation, Gen Xers, basically. And then I
mm.
was, a youngin, and there was a couple other youngins. So I did that. Um, it was rather good stuff. I had a spiritual experience, which was quite cool, but that's not what I was going to talk about. Later on in the day, they were playing this game outside. It was like horseshoes kind of thing, something similar.
Mm.
And I just sort of sat there and watched them. And I could just see the status games playing out. You know, I could see all the different, status hierarchy positions for all the different people in the group and how they were jockeying for position. And then the the young alpha guy, who was the head of his generation, was called up to do the thing. And it was like very tense. It was like the alpha challenge moment. You have to get this right. You are, you are the head man. You have to, And he did. He nailed it perfectly. And everyone was like, yes, grah. And the whole time I was sitting there, I just sat there and went, wow, look at these monkeys playing their little status games. That's all I could think. And they kept like, oh, you come and play the game with us. I'm like, no, I'm not. Um, always is the case when you have any form of substance, when you have thoughts of superiority, something comes with us and comes along and humbles you, which something did, but that's beside the point. But it was very much that thought of like, I see exactly what you are doing, and you don't. You think you're just having fun, but you're jockeying for position in your status hierarchy for mate selection. And everyone here is a family member. Um, and they'll all be changing their neurochemistry based on where they stand in the hierarchy, and then that'll signal in terms of mating selection to other partners. And it's just,
Yeah, I'm trying to
yeah.
decide how much in my own history the lack of interest in that sort of game was from obliviousness or just disinterest or like I think I participated in the games, but it's like at uni, that's probably a good one because I was homeschooled. I arrived at uni and homeschooler meets people who've gone to high school. You can imagine some of the hilarity that would ensue. And I was comfortably in the odd one out position.
Mm.
I fitted into the social group, but so I wasn't
But you were
interested in.
outside of it.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, your place in the group was an outsider who's in the group sometimes.
Yeah, like most of that group had gone to school together. So it was sort of oh, he's cool, he can join in type thing, I think. And I caused a laugh by not getting rude jokes or by saying something and then everyone laughs and then I take a second to work out what innuendo I actually accidentally made. I've since been
Mm.
trained by friends who love those sort of innuendos to recognize them all over the place. And then at work, I met some. Oh, there's the guys who work in the workshop at work are. Oh, what is it? They're probably young 20s, like I'm guessing 22, both engaged to be married, both reasonably conservative Christian, and don't like those sort of jokes. So I had to recalibrate for a while there.
I think that's one of the downsides of homeschooling. Like I'm going to do it, but there is a real bond that you get with lower class people when you're brought up around them. Like I notice a lot in my work, the people that are on my level in terms of, We get along. We're normal people. We're sort of working class Joes. There's a real bond there, and then there's the boss who's a bit more, you know, upper lip snooty, raised with money kind of attitude.
Mm.
And there's real, you know, the communication just doesn't work between those channels. And there's a real connection between people who, it feels like, who have been through the hard yards,
Mm.
like, shaped by the real world. And I think that's the concern when people say, like, oh, your kid won't be socialized or whatever with homeschooling. And the concern is, like, they're not going to be experiencing the real world. They're going to be experiencing the world that you give them, which means they're going to be apart from the world when they go out into it.
Interesting emotional reaction to that. Not strong one, but like, is that a bad thing? As in, sort of to be the sane one in an
No,
insane world.
no, no. Going back to our conversations about the relationships between men and women these days and how much that's being shown, for at least my algorithm. Uh, Boy, am I glad I wasn't a part of that.
Hmm.
I was in the public school system, but I was forced to be an outsider because of my aforementioned issues during my teenage years, which was effectively just hide for a guy. Although I was at a lot of the places and almost got unlucky once, and I'm glad it just didn't quite happen. I won't go into that story, but I dodged a bullet there because I don't think anything is more harmful than the way our generation treats relationships.
Hmm.
I think if we're not careful, that will be the destruction of our society, the breakdown of relationships between men and women. And I don't blame our generation because, someone taught us to do this. It wasn't our phones.
It certainly has the potential to take down a lot of society. Like, if 20% of people don't have kids because they can't have a functional society, and 10% of the remainders, or another 10%, have dysfunctional kids, that's 30% of the population. Well, it's a downward
I'd
spiral.
say that's pretty optimistic.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd be well. The fall of Rome, the population dropped to about 5% of that at the peak. So if we assume a relatively similar path, there's a lot more behind that conceptual structure there. But
Yeah. There's a
5%
lot
of
of
the
mirrors to that time.
yeah, yeah, a
Not good ones.
an arrogant intellectual class who assume that they know how to work the world and they know better than the world in a lot of cases. Like the idea these days that something that happens, well, what was it? Thomas Jefferson was recorded as saying that it was more likely that an entire county of people had lied than a rock had fallen from the heavens, because the theory and understanding of the time was that there are no rocks in the sky. Shooting stars is something entirely different, nothing to do with it at all. So the idea of a rock falling from the sky was absurd and dismissed because, oh, this is impossible, therefore it didn't happen. And yeah, that idea that, oh, this situation could not work out that way because it's impossible. My theoretical structure doesn't
Ah,
include room for it.
right. Well, that's science
Hmm.
as an establishment, and it's always been that way, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well,
People like to think that scientists are like looking at all the things that they disagree with and being like, oh, that maybe that's true.
the
They're
pure
not.
scientific method, in the pure sense, I think doesn't, but the scientific dogma, absolutely. Like in the scientific revolution, it
Yeah.
was built in as an assumption that all that exists is physical. Like everything, there is nothing that is not
Yeah. Well,
physical and measurable.
there's that, but there's also the generation effect with scientists. That there'll be a scientific dogma,
Mm.
a cathedral, a church, a message. And then, 25 years of underground research will happen until the evidence for that underground research is so overwhelming that it'll flip the script. The old ones will all fall away and discredit. The new theories will take power and then repeat
I've heard it described as
forever.
science advances one funeral at a time, as the old cougars, codgers, old
Yeah.
codgers get out the way and let the new guys do the thing they've worked out 10 years ago.
I feel, yeah, it's like that, but like a generational effect.
Mm.
It seems to happen in big waves. Um, God, I can't wait for the physics one, but that's probably political involvement. Certainly very far away from what we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, so you touched on the past and your past. Do you want to continue
Are
going
we
into that?
are almost an hour in already. Woohoo. Um,
That's in
yeah,
that's in the
like I
call. It's
feel.
half an hour of recording.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay, that's even better. So yes, I feel like it'd be great to pick up from where we were. I think we did a lot of good work, and it was very interesting yesterday, or a couple of days ago. Um, Problem is, how do you go straight back into that mindset?
Well,
I was in a very interesting place.
when we left off last time, I got the impression that you were going to or needing to do some stuff on your own with that other aspect of yourself.
That was my intention.
Did your
Um,
intention get fulfilled?
no, I think when I closed that and I said that that's enough for today, I think he was simply happy that the realization had been made, and then to be, you know, to left there for now. It is interesting because I've had a lot of emotional problems over the last few days, and I have been wondering how, if that's connected to that.
I have seen a few examples both in my own head and demonstrated by other people of otherwise unacknowledged or hidden aspects of a person being very happy to finally be seen
Yeah.
instead like
Uh,
banging on the glass trying to get your attention.
I think that's what has occurred.
Hmm. The
I don't
process
know. I don't know where to go.
probably not something that can be hurried.
Sorry.
You probably can't hurry that process along. Do you feel like that aspect of yourself wants to do any more at the moment? Because if he does, then yay. If he doesn't, then yay, we'll do something else.
I think it's hard to know. It's not like I can, I don't know, call him up.
Hmm.
Trying to think maybe like going into an old story or an old memory might help.
Hmm.
I guess it depends. I feel a lot of tension thinking about doing that. It was a lot easier talking about, the destruction of our society.
Yeah, the destruction of the society is the comfortable topic.
Yeah, it is. But even the thoughts about the issues between men and women, that's very uncomfortable. And I think that's always been a sore spot for me for somewhat obvious reasons.
Hmm.
So maybe that has a lot to do with it.
What, since that time, has the armor concept, armor self, protected you from?
Since I was a child.
No, no, since the 15-year-old version that we were talking to last time. So in relatively recent life, so the past 5 years.
I'm older than that. Um,
I'm talking about,
uh,
yeah, recent. Just
no,
trying.
no, no. Okay, so you're trying to hit on something. Could you be more specific with what you're trying to aim at?
I'm trying to get towards a conversation with this aspect of yourself. So I'm trying to use the question of, well, what purpose has that aspect of yourself served for you to protect? What has it protected you from? Because that seems to be the purpose of the armor, to protect you from something. What has it protected you from in recent memory that you can call to mind as a way of sort of coming
Hmm.
into contact with that aspect more directly?
Well, in saying that, if the conceptual layout is that the shell is to protect the child part of me, um, the vulnerable, emotion-filled child.
Hmm.
Judging by when I started and the things that have always hurt the most, I would say that it was to protect from status interactions and their knock-on effects with finding love. It was to do with the relationship between, well, with girls and being lonely, but also, um, yeah, also the hierarchy in general.
What do you think of the that social hierarchy game?
What do I think now, and what did I think then?
What does it evoke a feeling of um, animosity or
It felt unjust. Um, well, I mean, if you could imagine, I was effectively ruled out of the game entirely for being so low down the tree.
mm,
And, you know, I realized that rather young. And I didn't see a path out of that. I found all interactions in life were shaded by that game.
were you trying to reject the tree or in the
Maybe,
Mhm.
maybe then I thought it was all, wrong or unfair. I certainly thought it was unfair because I was judged as unacceptable, or I felt I was. And to be honest, at the time, you know, 12, 13, 14, the
Mm.
status maneuvering was not based on, real valued skills that end up mattering in adult life. And I think that's because we somehow have got it into our head that, being sexually mature but not treated as an adult is a good idea. That's beside the point. Um, I don't want to say that I reject the game, but that could just be me now.
Because the
I
you
could have very
now,
well wanted to reject it then.
you seem to have done an end run around the game in a sense of you saw it from the outside and saw the buttons being pushed and then
I
understood,
found
oh,
my place in the game.
mm,
I found how to win the game.
mm.
I often have had fantasies about going back and being that age with all that I have learnt, because I know full well I would dominate the game in every way. Because it can be gamed, I guess. Um, I don't think it was disdain from the game. I think it was purely hurt and pain from rejected from the game. And of course it was. I felt rejected from my parents. And then I felt rejected from all of the world as well.
Did you feel like the same game was, now this can come across in a couple of different
That's
ways
all
in my
right.
head, but the same game of social maneuvering was played between you and adults, and particularly your mum
No,
and so on.
no.
Okay, what's the adult child pattern of the game? Because you talked about the
When I
tree
was
and climbing. I don't know where
when
the
I was
tree
a
is.
kid,
Mm.
free. Sorry, am I missing a reference? Tree.
You talked about being rejected from contention because you were so low on the tree. I've always been confused as to where the tree is. Was the that
Oh,
that came to mind? So
I'm
I'm ignorant. Help
that's
me.
sexual selection is what I meant.
I understand that, but in the metaphor of being able to play that game, I've always been befuddled. I don't know the rules of the game in order to try and play it. So um,
Okay. Effectively, I ranked so low in the hierarchy that I was always off the table for
mm,
selection.
yeah,
That's what I meant.
yeah. I have an intellectual theoretical understanding of it. It's the my history doesn't involve any competency at the game as such, so or
Okay.
awareness of how it was being played by others around me.
Well, it's not conscious by anyone, um, except those who are either in my position, your position, or winning the game by comprehending it. Most people just think it's life. And
That
I
makes
think that's because
sense.
most people aren't the, you know, cleverest. Um,
Hmm.
I never had a problem with interacting with adults. I was always really good at that, and I always felt like I was treated more as an equal by adults than people my age. And I did everything I can to interact with adults because I didn't feel the direct pressure of the status game with them. I felt like I was treated with respect by adults.
Mm. Do you still feel like other adults your age treat you with that same respect, or is the situation different now that you're also an adult?
No. Okay. Mostly no. The I do not feel the brutality of the teenage version of the status game or the sexual one, mostly because I have a partner and I've mastered the sexual version. And the working world, there's incentives to not play the game in the working world. If you're playing status games with the people who you work with, you're not going to work well together. And people are aware, like, even if it's a person that, like, I don't think is particularly cool, at least during working hours, treat them well, do the job, we're in it together because we're on the same team. Like, you don't get an option to be out of the team in the working environment, at least not to the same degree. Obviously, when the clock goes off, that's a different story. But
I think that may
it
come
is
back in
still
office
present.
politics sometimes, but I don't think either of us are in that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, it's still present in the adult world, but it is only present in inferior people. Anyone who I see who is acting in that way, I see as someone who's still a teenager at heart. I see them as fundamentally pathetic. And people that I meet who are not that way, they're kind, they're caring, they're respectful to everyone. I see them as admirable, as that's what a real adult is.
It's an interesting paradox that those who seem most desperate to win the game are the ones who are most losing it in that desperation.
Yeah, that's the gossipy people. That's the, the we're too cool for you, snooty, elderly people who run, the local council or whatever. No one respects those people. You know, they think everyone does. No one does. Everyone looks down on them. The people that I think this is something to do with that working class vibe I talked about before. The people that are just here to live their life, to get along, to have families, and to do their jobs, everyone's equal. And the people who think that they're better and look down or like rip on people, they're treated as less than in the adult world. It's like an ethical check there. And that's not present at all in the teenage version, which is where the problems with bullying and stuff comes in. Because of course it is. You're letting children decide what is ethical and what isn't on their own. Lord of the Flies.
Mm. So I'm just thinking that it sounds like, well, from what you've said, the armor self was created because of the brutality of high school and high school social jockeying.
Yeah. And also the belief that I would never find love.
Do you think there was a great need for love that was being unsatisfied?
Yeah. I don't know if I noticed that or realized that at the time that I was abnormal in that way, but for sure.
Mm.
Obviously, that'll go back to childhood and probably infancy.
It's hard to recognize where you differ from others without comprehending both you and others. Yeah, takes a while.
It was an acute pain
Mm.
and an ever present one. But, from that time, 12, 13, or whatever, I thought my case was hopeless forever. And I thought it was purely because of the body that my brain was born into. Nothing to do with me at all. That I could be as virtuous or intelligent as I was and still never be treated equally by anyone or loved.
Do you think that the acuteness of that need for love from your social peers came from a lack of love received elsewhere?
On the relationship front, for sure. Um, Social peers,
Others in high
I
school.
think
Yeah.
I think I just wanted to be treated with some form of respect, like an equal. Because that's something that I've certainly noticed in my life, that anyone who didn't treat me as an equal, I hated. And that's one thing I have to thank my grandmother for, is that she legitimately treated me like an equal for my entire life. And I don't think I would be nearly this intelligent if I didn't have that.
A question that comes up that I don't think is pointing to something true in this case, but it comes up as worth exploring, that
Mm.
the often the things that trigger great emotion in us are aspects of our own shadows, something I've heard, and I just thought it would be worth for a moment exploring the potential that there was an aspect of that sort of behavior in your own shadow.
Okay, I don't understand how that maps. Do you think you could lay that out for me?
um, Not my own understanding, but I heard expressed, might have been by Jordan Peterson, that the things that upset us about others are often aspects of our own shadow, because the I'm going to mess this up in some way, but the archetype of the other, the enemy, the one that must be defeated or fought, has all of our shadow aspects that we reject in ourselves projected onto them in order to trigger the, say, necessary emotional reaction to fight off those who are trying to attack our own tribe, for example. And so,
Right. I'm just trying to think how that would map to my scenario.
well, you talked about others not treating you as an equal, leading to you hating them. And so I don't think this is the case, but worth exploring that if that was an aspect of your shadow, that would be the part of yourself that you act out but are not aware of, that treat those treat those who you view as beneath you as if they're not equals, and hate that aspect of yourself, or you have a tendency to do it.
Hmm.
You did mention earlier, at that family Christmas dinner, looking at the others with their jockeying in the social game, and made a comment along the lines of, look at the monkeys playing in their social dominance games, and
And then was immediately humbled.
yeah, but the
Maybe there's a point there. I don't know if that would be the case at the start,
yep,
because I know that the child me was definitely not that.
yeah,
But
I guess it can happen the other way around too. That something that your life gives you reason to hate then becomes integrated into your shadow because you reject the part of yourself that mirrors that.
well, I certainly did it back to people, but I'm not entirely sure that that was unconscious. Perhaps that might be the case now, but like today, for example, this barbecue thing, I didn't like go out and try and interact with people. This is always the case in my life now. And the same for my wife, to be honest. We'll go to a social gathering and we'll just sort of be happy to be there. And people will come up and like try and start up conversations with us, and we'll, you know, do our best, but it'll run dry pretty quickly. Because like they'll ask us about our life and then we'll ask them about their life, and then that's sort of it. Like I was playing with my kid off to the side a bit, and they were like, "Hey, come over here, like don't be shy." And I was like, "I'm okay. I don't I don't feel a need to be accepted or be a part of the group anymore. I don't feel superior to those people though, and I don't look down on them. So I guess maybe not now. But I certainly know there was a long time that I looked down on everyone around me. And it was the teenage years because I felt like, a lone adult in the midst of children. So maybe there's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy part there,
Because
where it would have been better if I was trying to engage better.
yeah, I heard that when once an aspect of the shadow is integrated, the things that other people do that previously aroused anger and dark emotions towards them, instead it's just data of, oh, this person is acting this way. Well, I will respond this way. And it doesn't disturb your internal peace because it's like, oh, you're doing this. Where previously it was, how dare you rage and so on. Instead, it's just data and you respond appropriately.
Maybe. Because, yeah, when I was younger, it was a case of being off to the side and being angry about it. Then, wanting to be a part of the in group. And then probably if I, was invited to, I probably like slap the hand kind of thing, which obviously would make things worse.
I wonder if it was easier to rage at the group for not including you than
Yeah, then to
con-
admit it might be me.
yeah, or to confront
Yeah.
the fact that they had rejected you and
Well, I did have friends, and that side of things wasn't too bad once I found, people that I could hang out with. Um, they ended up being like relatively popular people, so that was enough. But I think a lot of the pain came from the romantic side of things more
mm,
than more than that other stuff. But at
yeah,
least in the early days in the transition, it didn't help that the transition from um, primary school to high school was one marked by like three school moves.
three
Like first I went to intermediate, and then I went to high school, and then I went to a different high school the year after. So being like literal outsider coming in every time
mm,
um, wasn't ideal.
something that comes to mind is a trope that I've seen, which um, the idea of teenage girls getting together and pretending to accept a boy's advances and then humiliating him as a group for their own entertainment.
I've never seen that happen.
Well, the thought was based on that trope whether something like that could have triggered the creation of the armor persona to protect you from the pain of that.
Well, on the final school, the high school that I ended up with, I got invited to join a group of girls as, a friend group. It was like my second day or whatever. I sat down at a tree to eat my lunch, and they like invited me over or whatever. And I hung out with them for like a year, or not even that, maybe 6 months. It was like 13 of them and me. And then, yeah, there was a day where I was sort of like shunned from the group. They wanted to go do girl things, and I was sort of like, why can't I come? And, overheard some gossipy stuff. So left. And I was rather hurt by that, I think. And I left and went and hung out with some guy friends that I'd made from class, and then stayed with them for the rest of the high school. So I don't know, maybe that was a thing. that started it. Um, it's hard to remember when I made this.
Mm.
I think probably after that point, I would guess. I don't think it was a once off decision. I think it was like a gradual transition of not understanding what was going on and then just like running into brick walls constantly. I guess I'm probably mad at my family for not teaching me anything about women, which is annoying being raised by them. Felt like sabotage, maybe.
Mm. Yeah, I've heard a few
I was certainly kept a
cases.
boy. That was the case. I was certainly kept a boy
Mm.
until the world wouldn't have that anymore.
I'm just thinking of cases
Yeah.
I've heard about, not particular ones, but mothers who have a young boy and then will proclaim their hatred of men. And
Yeah, I probably heard a thing or two of that growing up
mm,
from both mother and grandmother. Certainly a hatred of family, my grandmother at least.
I wonder if on a psychological level, oh, there might have been a hope for, like, there's, nah,
Oh, that's funny.
hmm?
I think somewhere in my heart there's a deep-seated hatred of women.
Does that come
And
from your mother and grandmother?
probably. And then all of the hard lessons I had to learn on my own interacting with them over the years. Probably particularly from mother and grandmother, because those lessons that I had to learn the hard way wouldn't have been done that way if I hadn't been told lies.
So it wasn't just a lack of being told things, it was being lied to.
I don't think there's a way that you could do it without lying.
Mm,
I don't think there's a way that you could get to, how old I was and how, enthusiastic about asking questions I was without lying.
mm,
Because, I had all of these implicit assumptions about relationships and, having a family of my own. I sort of seriously doubt that not telling me on purpose might as well be lying and saying it's the other way. Because, know full well.
Do you know what you thought relationships would be like when you were a child?
Romantic stories.
The Disney princess type stories?
Yeah, I guess you could use that, yeah. Pure, innocent, untarnished by, you know, the who gets who game.
Because that's the story that a lot of women seem to grow up with.
Yeah, but women understand.
Mm.
because they're the ones who say no.
I'm just thinking of comments that have come from mutual friends of ours about female mutual friends about how they went out into the world thinking relationships would be what they'd seen in Disney movies, and then looking back, it was all nothing like that. And I think that they're lied to as well, but I suspect that it's a harder lie to find out about as a guy because the guys are the ones who get rejected, where for the girls it's learning to reject the guys who would be bad for them rather than learning to deal with rejection.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think that any conversation ever occurred around the idea of being rejected, period. I think I had some kind of belief that like I would just find the girl that I liked and then, you know, being romantic towards her and it would just work.
Mm. It makes me. I'm just the things Jordan Peterson has said about what was it, the successful mother fails in the sense of sending her child out into the harsh world knowing that it is harsh and that the alternative is the smothering mother who prevents her child growing up, and it's
Yeah,
sounds a bit like the second one.
yeah, because I wasn't prepared to go into the world. It was like a try and protect, try and not tell about the adult world, and then it's, you can't actually physically stop me from going out. So I just got walloped by it. I've been trying to think during this conversation when this change really happened, and I think that was after the first time I had a real girlfriend with somebody like 16 or something, probably 15, 16. Um, wasn't real girlfriend, but like I fell in love with her properly and probably got my heart broken in a brutal way.
I'm just thinking of the parallel in my life as the first girlfriend was the one I married, had a child with, was physically and emotionally abused by, and not trying to steal your thunder or but I think I might have been better prepared because I was an adult. I was over 20. I was at uni. There's like a bit more
Yeah.
maturity to deal with it.
Nah, she dumped me after 2 weeks through text,
Yeah,
so I didn't get that chance.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that might have been when the proper change happened.
Because how else can you deal
Well, I
with it
had
at that
something
age?
similar with my current wife, as your story about your first girlfriend, remember? Not
Mm,
steal too
yeah,
much thunder. Because I managed to fix her for some reason. Lord knows how that happened.
yeah. I still mentally stand agape at that, and then applaud.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't like I did a lot of work over 4 years at that, but I very much doubt that it was me who did the thing. She still doesn't really talk about it too much. Like I've asked her specifically what changed, and she sort of doesn't really answer. But I know something changed, so
Mm.
she's only getting better by the day. I'm a very happy man. And I think I fucking deserve it after the shit I've been through the last 25 years. Oh. Yeah, the girl that I fell in love with after, 2 weeks or whatever, and then broke up with, she was like kissing other guys and stuff and all of that, which didn't help. And then when she texted me breaking up with me, she said that not only is it purely because I was too short, but also because her friends made fun of her for it, and she cared more what they think than how she felt, or we were. So it's like double whammy, you know, not loyal to you, and also not loyal to you, and it's because you're short.
And also the it's not just her rejecting, it's a rejection from hypothetical women in general.
Yes, but that's the case with any rejection. But yeah,
Mm,
I think I think there is a very deep seated distrust and hatred of women in my bones. Just I think part of the reason I'm not so stunned at how amazing my wife is and why I'm so happy, but still have problems around trust. So I'm getting a lot better, and I've got two daughters as well. And none of the feelings that I have about women are towards them or towards my wife anymore.
mm,
So I don't know. Maybe that's fixing me slowly.
sounds like it.
Truly positive relationship with a woman.
And the not making the mistake that I've heard that the woman who has a son and talks about hating men makes of conflating the son I'm mixing some things up here, but yeah, not
Yeah,
mistaking your
yeah.
children for the
All men. Yeah.
yeah, because hating a certain action taken by a certain woman, that seems far more justified.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you can hate being
And
hit.
I think that's why I'm very against the overly sexualized women thing. Yeah, besides the fact that they're destroying the society. But yeah, because I
like
was directly affected by that.
like they're flaunting it in a I got it, you can't have it type way.
Mm, I don't know. Just enjoying the game,
Mm,
maybe.
where the game is brutal.
Yeah, and it's crushing and horrific for those on the wrong end. Maybe
Mm,
that's why I also have a large issue with the woke times, because both my parents were that. My grandmother particularly. There's
mm.
real hatred there as well.
It's interesting you referred to them with both my parents.
Yeah, I know. But that's what it was.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They lived together when I was young, and throughout my upbringing, you know, the other one was always nearby.
Mm,
Like I'd go there on weekends or, you know, walk down there when I was older to see her to get away from my mother. So in effect, both of them felt like they were, raised me.
mm.
And, it's not like there was another person.
Do you have a a feeling of the aspect of yourself where this started has any comments on it? We seem to have dived deep into what caused it.
Sorry, could you say that again?
The aspect of yourself that we were talking to last time, do you know if he has any comments on this, or is he just not part of this, not listening?
I'm sure he's there and listening. I guess I'm not paying enough attention. I don't think he has anything to say right now.
Mm.
Guess I'm doing good enough on my own.
Yeah, I was worried there might be, well, unnecessarily worried probably, but that there might be some sort of no, 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 you're getting it all wrong.
Yeah, I don't think so, unfortunately.
Mm.
It all lines up.
So you talked about
Certainly got plenty of feelings towards my mother and grandmother with that.
you talked about having that deep-seated hate of woman from that childhood experience, and I feel like you'd probably agree that hating half the human race in a part of you is probably not a good thing overall. And so I'm thinking of oh, probably not the best way to say this on my end or approach it, but I'm thinking of the value of delineating it out into the actions that are hated versus the people who sometimes choose to do those actions, and so the
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know about the other way of being a woman, which is like the traditional supportive, wife and mother role.
Mm.
I never really had an experience with that. And I love that. Like that's the thing. That's amazing. And when it comes to that, there's no animosity there, I suppose.
Do you think the vast majority of women, or do you think they have the potential for that?
I think that that's their natural inclination and that they've been brainwashed and lied to in order to not pursue it. And social pressure is used against them to punish them out of doing it, as they're more susceptible to that.
I wonder how or if
And
hmm,
sorry, I want to make a point
yeah.
before you follow that up. That you were talking before about delineating it out and being like it's not the women, it's the actions.
Hmm.
Understand that I understand that logically, but I think what I'm struggling with internally is that my feelings don't
Oh,
get that.
certainly.
That
So
the issue was always like, are all women like this? And then if that's the case, then you get very quickly into a, all is hopeless kind of scenario.
mm, and I'm both trying to tread carefully but trying to forge forward in this, and I'm aware there are strong emotions at play, and so I'm like,
I can handle myself. You don't have to tread so carefully.
okay, good. Yeah, I think you've
I wouldn't
said
be
similar
doing this
things
if I
before.
was unfragile. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not fragile in exploring these things.
yeah, and yeah, if I poke any sore spots or approach something wrong, I hope you know that it's with the intent
You're
to
not
help.
gonna. All right, you need to relax, man. You're
Yeah.
not gonna step on a landmine here.
Oh,
If
good.
you poke a sore spot, all it's gonna make me do is go, "Oh, that's interesting," and then dig into it more. Right, I'm not. I am not unstable. That's for fucking sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing's your idea in the first place.
Well, yeah, there is that.
Yeah. But what was I going to say? Yeah. You were talking about the way that loving support, or, yeah, being loving and supportive is the natural inclination of women, and how they've been lied to in our society that's pushed them into this uh, destructive and selfish role.
Mm.
I was thinking about, uh, although it's possibly too high to aim at, what can be done to help them to grow into that, although that contains an implicit assumption that we know what's best for them, which, well, there's a can of worms and a bunch of
Well,
arrogance.
I understand your hesitation to make statements like that. You know, social conditioning's probably like you're not allowed to say that kind of thing. Um, to your point, yeah, we do, but that's beside the point. I don't think that grow into that is an option. This is my problem. I think that when women have walked that path, there's no walking back. They're done. And I think that that's permanent.
That's sad because that's not going to be fun for them.
Well, it purely comes down to um, the bonding relationships problem. Once you've had multiple partners, you can't bond with one properly anymore. It's over. And women who have played that game, they'll play it till they age out, and then they'll be angry, middle-aged, lonely women. And
Hmm.
that'll cause a whole hell of a headache for society, I can tell you. It already is a bit. Like, that's where all of the original feminist movement came from.
Madonna trying to
Not
pretend she's
not
still
not the
18.
original, but yeah, yeah, she's like 50 something. But it's more the point of like, yeah, they can't let go of that because that's all they have. They base their whole like value and personality on it. They'll be alone and they'll be alone forever because no man will ever date that who's worthy. They'll hate men forever. They'll get the baby rabies. It's too late for them to have kids and then they realize that they want to or that they, have a biological need for that. And that will drive them up the wall and they'll lash out at everything and everyone. And then they'll become little old ladies living alone in an apartment on the pension until they die. It's a
Just,
horrific existence.
yeah.
And they couldn't suffer a worse fate if I had come up with it myself. And I'm not happy about that. For as much as I hate people like that, I really pity them because that's what's going to happen. Unless they manage to lie to one man and dupe him into a partnership, in which case I feel horrible for him and feel pretty, bad about her. I want her to get punished now.
And then the kids who come out of that partnership, or who the kids that she has on her own because of sleeping around lots, that's not going to be nice for them.
Yeah, and that was my upbringing. That's where I fit into the picture.
Mm.
Like the statistics, I don't know if we went through it on the show before, the statistics for child for fatherlessness for
Mm.
kids raised by single parents. You want to scare yourself about the future of our society and why everyone's so fucked. Just look into that, and then also look into the percentage of children who are from single parent households or single mother households. It's
That
not good.
that's a scary one to look into, being a single dad myself right now.
You're in a better situation than a single mum. Okay? Take that to heart.
How does that square with, well, better in terms of finding a future partner or better in the present situation, like financially or in terms of how well I
Better
can.
for the better for the child in every circumstance.
That Jordan Peterson said something that contradicted that, that not having a father figure is bad and not having a mother figure is catastrophic. How does that
Yeah,
square?
that's what I mean.
How does that?
Look, it'd obviously be better if your son had a mother figure,
Hmm.
but I'm saying that if your son was raised by a mother figure and not you, it would be unbelievably worse than his current situation.
But what Jordan
Better
Peterson
single
said,
dad than single mum.
no, what
Better
Jordan
single
Peterson
dad
was the
than
other way
single mum.
around.
No, that what you just said agreed with me.
That not
That a
have,
single father is bad, a single mother is catastrophic.
no, not having a father figure is bad. Not having a mother figure is catastrophic. Was what I was quoting.
I think you might have that round the wrong way.
Okay, I will have to double check that.
But as far as I'm aware, that yeah. Now the asterisk is on that for early childhood,
Hmm.
infancy.
Yeah.
Infancy, yeah, mothers needed. Like a baby without a mother for the first year of the life, not good. After that, when they're toddlers, yeah, you'd much rather a father than a mother.
Okay, because by that measure, then I'm well past that danger window, and
Yeah, that also assumes that the mother in the scenario is actually motherly towards the infant.
so I guess my mum provided that for my son.
Yeah, that that bonding, that skin on skin, that stuff like that. That's not being left in another room with the door closed, screaming, kind of thing,
Oh yeah,
which
that
is unbelievably common for single mother households. So that's great.
yeah, that sort of thing didn't happen. It was like there was of course periods of trying to get him to sleep where it's like, okay, let's leave him for 5 minutes. He's crying, but let's leave him for 5 minutes to see if he settles himself. Okay, no, but it was always with attention on him. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I think
consciously.
I think I'm slowly my subconscious is slowly delineating out the separation between women who have gone down that path and women who aren't that way. But I think the real fear was always that all women are that way,
Hmm.
and that that was their nature, rather than their nature being, the mother.
Well, I have to say, the idea of all women, that being the nature of all women, is a terrifying thought, a terrifying
What,
idea.
the hypergamy problem,
What's that mean?
or just the statement of all? The thing about like mate switching and being, you know,
I was
sexually promiscuous and unfavoring. Like, is that what you meant by all
the
women being that way, being
I was
terrifying?
thinking of
Or was
more
it the
of
statement of all?
the all being the brutally rejecting sort. I guess might have internally been
Yeah.
conflating it with my ex of all women being that way would be terrifying.
Yeah, that's what I was meaning. That
Yeah.
I think that I had that worldview
Mm.
for many years. That all women were that way, and also the, cheating on their partners, unfaithful kind of way as well.
It makes it feel like the the hardening of yourself that seems to have been the trigger for was like, yeah, I can understand that as a reaction.
Yeah. It also doesn't help that at the time the leading theory for why women cheat on men was the idea that they would marry a low status man who would like worship them and then cheat with high status men to get the better offspring. That was the theory at the time, which also doesn't help this fit.
Mm.
To make you more comfortable, that has since been disproven. It is not the case. Women cheat in relationships because their current relationship is heading south. They will be loyal to a man unless they see it not going well, in which case they try and set up a new relationship in the background they can switch to when their new one is stable and their old one is not. That's why they cheat. It's a switching of partners move to secure them and their children, which
Mm.
makes sense. So that doesn't scare me anymore. But yeah, that was the current theory, or the theory at the time, which
Mm.
didn't help my feelings towards women.
So it brings up the question for me of currently looking for a partner, how to filter for the filter out that sort of partner when searching. I
Mm.
think you suggested, as we were discussing by messaging, that a single mother might be a good route to look. And um, in our conversations in the car, Dad made similar comments that a single mother might be oh, easier to fit for me in some practical senses. Like I've got a son,
Yeah,
she's got kids. It's like easier
there's a
to.
practical reality to that that might make things work that you're able to mesh together.
Hmm.
I think my point more with that was like you can't rule that out. I don't think that you're in a position to be able to rule that out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you want to be really careful because there's a lot more risks going for that than anything else. Um, it could work and it could work really well, but you have to be careful. In terms of you and selecting, you want to be selecting for um, the amount of selection pressure you'll be able to bring to bear will depend on your position. Status game again.
Hmm.
Um, you don't think that you're in the greatest position, and you're not in the greatest position. But with a little work, you could be in a very good position and be able to more or less pick. Um,
Are you
so I would
referring?
encourage you to do that.
Are you referring to the the way you talked about from seeing the game from the outside, learning to win it instead of play it? So sidestep most of it and just go to the end was the way I perceived it. Or are you talking about, say, getting myself in a
Yeah,
better financial situation that way? Or
no. Um, yes and no. I don't think that you should be looking down and trying to play and like beat the game because you can't do it in a false way. That doesn't work for long term relationships. Like you're looking for a wife, you need to. What I'm talking about is more shaping up yourself so you sit higher in the hierarchy, not gaming the hierarchy, but actually doing it, playing it legitimately and winning legitimately, not
hmm.
gaming.
Yeah, it's sort of the difference between cheating and knowing the rules
Yeah.
to effectively play them.
Yeah. Like from what I see from where you are, I'd say that you should shape up and get yourself into a slightly better position, and then you might be able to pick the cream of the crop.
Yeah,
You
the
get exactly what you want without the additional baggage of because the problem with single mother thingy is previous relationship. And like that's a big enough red flag on its own to be considered off the table.
hmm.
And the other side of that is the higher your selection pressure, the more the more you have criteria for her to meet, the higher status you are in her eyes. If you're going to, you could be the same guy and have low criteria or high criteria. And if you have higher criteria, you are going to be higher status by nature. Like nothing else about you changed at all. You'll be viewed as more valuable simply because you have more more criteria.
More discerning, yeah. One of the
Yeah.
elements of playing the
How you view
game.
yourself comes into a lot.
So was that?
I was just saying that how you view yourself comes into how you are viewed.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and I've been
you
working
go.
on that with you, and thank you, and more to come. But oh, how much selection pressure I apply depends on, or can apply, depends on how many options I have to pick from, and that depends on how many times I try and roll the dice. And then if I know the game well, I can roll high, but I need to get better at actually rolling the dice at all.
I don't know about that.
Okay, okay.
I heard a statement recently that I think matches this quite well, which is you don't focus on getting the girl. You focus on being the guy the girl wants. Your job isn't to go out there and approach and like try and get her. Your job is to be the person that when you walk into a room, you get the attention from her anyway.
Mm,
At which point, then you be selective and you find what you want.
I still need to not just stay at home and take care of only the everyday stuff.
Yeah, yeah, off
Yeah,
the bat, yeah.
yeah, that's the.
Dress sense, physical presence in a room, strength, strength of character, although that's the second one so much. And in terms of you for selection, ideally you want to find someone who is a virgin. Straight off the bat, yeah, I know that sounds archaic, but honestly, that's what you want.
I feel like there's definitely a impulse to go for a woman who's had less partners than me on a fundamental level, and having had
Less
one,
the better.
yeah,
Well, yeah, less the better, period.
mm,
The minimal amount, ideally zero.
I do fear that that substantially limits the selection pool at my age in this culture.
Yes. Yes, in this culture, for sure. And it also depends on like how much you want to feel like a creep or not, uh, from what age you select. Um, because you could 100% get a girl straight out of a high school who is virgin, um, and that's got to make you feel rather uncomfortable. Now that I've said that, doesn't it?
Well, I don't think I could function with anyone in a relationship who I couldn't connect with on an intellectual playing field.
I didn't say you couldn't do that. I meant purely age. And on that topic, sorry to my wife if you listen to this, although to be honest, she knows. Um, that comes with time. Okay, my wife, when we got together, when we first met, not smart, didn't know anything. It took a long time, but now we can hold very interesting conversations. She learned to be an intellectual. She learned to be able to contend with me in a conversation. And yeah, she still isn't on my level and probably never will be.
Though you have pointed out that, what was it? Intuitively, she still astonishes you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I still have respect for her. Like it's not something where I'm like, oh, you dumb bimbo or whatever. None of that. Um, because funny, man, women different. I don't expect her to think the way I do.
Yeah.
But she's wise and she is intelligent, and it's something that came out through time because I effectively had to educate her, which took time because when we first met, she spoke like almost a 5-year-old. It was pretty rough. But now she's intelligent and she's articulate and she's able to walk through things and make her points on her own topics that aren't my points, and it's great. And that just came with time.
Mm.
I think you don't select for someone who is of equal intelligence to you. I know that you're really like desperate to have that intellectual interaction with your partner. I don't think that should be the selection question.
In the
I think that you
sense,
should.
the oh, the tendency. Now, I'm not sure which phrasing to use for this, but the functional relationship pattern of the male leading and the woman being, oh, I don't need to deal with making the decisions. Sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. I'll make a comment about that. My wife and I talked about this the other night, and then I'll go back to where we were before. I just
Mm.
think this is really interesting. Um, all of these dating conversations that have shown up in my algorithm, the traditional women are talking about submitting to their husbands, and then the sort of woke people are like, that sounds like slavery or whatever. I sort of had this realization with my wife when we were talking about it that look, women are the choosy ones. They select us at the end of the day, really. Because of that, men are what women made us. We lead and we make decisions in the family. We don't do that for us. We do it in service to her, to raise her children, our children, hopefully. Beside the point. That's not a comment about my marriage, by the way. That's just, I'm thinking about history in general.
There's a lot of mix up with that whole concept that's happened with,
Yeah. It's delegation.
yeah.
We do the hard work, which includes the thinking, because they don't wanna. I'm serious. That's the reality. We go out, we do the hard jobs that might get us killed, and we think and we go, and we make choices that we're responsible for the consequences for. And we do it for them because they don't want to do it.
Yeah, I talked about how my dad had as one of his red flags due to how his mum had acted, a woman trying to take control. And my mum
That
is
should be.
and has always been very comfortable or happy to be a homemaker. She grew up in a relatively traditional household. Her parents were Dutch and were both lived through the Second World War and so on, and then met over here. But yeah, four sisters and one brother in the household, and uh, from what I recall, the kids had split gender roles. So the son would go out and chop the wood with dad, and the girls would be in the kitchen cooking with mum, and that's the role that mum's comfortable with. She doesn't want to go out and do sports. She doesn't want to. Well, she goes and gives it her best and joins in, but she it's not where she's comfortable. She'll give it a good shot, but she's comfortable.
Not where she wants to be.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I think that's what that's what you should be selecting for at the end of the day. Number one priority, selecting for a woman who wants to be A, with you, which is why the previous partner thing's a problem, and then B, wants to be, a woman and embody that traditional homemaker role to help raise, yes, your son, but also any children that you will give her because you'll have to give her children. Um, and allow you to be bringing, be the breadwinner and raise the children. That at the end of the day, that is the selection that you're looking for.
mm,
It's
it's
not anything else. That's number one.
it's funny. About half of that sketched out relationship dynamic, I can say, yeah, I agree with that. And about half of it is like, okay, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's sort of in consideration that there's uncertainties and, yeah, bits to be worked out.
Yeah.
Because,
We can talk through that, or you can think through it on your own, whatever works for you.
yeah, I think I need to process a bit more because it's to do with the conversations I had with Dad in the car. Like, he was talking about how, like, we had a woman from the yacht club crewing on the trailer sailor we were sailing on, and he made a comment that it would be nice if mum was keen to do those kind of sports, but she's not. Okay, she's very good at what she does, and he made a comment about her sometimes, or him having heard her say that she was just a housewife, and that he disagreed that there should be a just in that sentence, that that is a very, very important job, and like there's no just
The most
about it.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the point I made to my wife the other day, and it sort of blew her mind that she'd heard it before. That's the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Mm.
It's the most important job on the planet.
And the fact that it's been so denigrated these days
On
is,
purpose. I mean, yes, I know I missed a conspiracy. I'm going to say on purpose, but I'm going to stand by that.
it's suicidal on a social level.
Yeah, I know. That's the point. Let's not go into that one today.
Okay.
There are certain people of unknown origin, though some
Mm.
I have some suspicions, who really want, certain nations containing certain people to completely fail and die in some genocidal way.
Mm.
Why? I don't know.
There was that. There was a
But
woman
I don't
who.
think, if is a question for me anymore.
There was the woman who did that debate at Oxford University on eating meat or not, who kept talking about sexy cows, um, and the blatantly false things she was saying about native people's diets. And it's like, hang on, you realize that the British people are native to the British Isles. Toad in the hole is a cultural diet, or not diet, but it's a, in the sense of it's mashed potato with sausages in it. It's like meat, haggis. It's like,
Mm.
this is like the
Yeah,
island.
when she says native, though, she means not you.
Yes, non-European.
Yeah, the only group it's okay to be racist towards.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
double
let's
think.
not go into the white genocide stuff today. That's another thing that'll get you in trouble if you talk about it these days. Uh-huh.
Yeah, one of the things I was saying to Dad that I didn't think I could do without, well, there was the intellectual side because I'm such an intellectual person and possibly too much, living too much in my head.
Yeah, having a partner, I can tell you this off the bat, having a partner who's not that, or at least not as much that, can do it on occasion, but isn't default to that, is really, really good when you
Mm,
are like that. I can tell you right now, it'd be better for you to have someone who's not really like that too much.
mm, yeah. The
Because it's sort of nice to just like have a conversation about feelings or like express feelings
mm,
or talk about the things you enjoy rather than like talking about the apocalypse
yeah,
as intellectual people do.
yeah. 'Cause I was, let me try and flesh this one out. Here we're playing with ideas in the expectation that some of what we say will be wrong in both other people's eyes and our own future sight in retrospect. And a lot of what we're talking about could be perceived as hurtful to someone, depending on their own
Yeah,
feelings.
I see where
And
you're going with that.
and yeah, the ability to say, I didn't mean that the way you took it. And then, so of
Yeah,
course, there's hurt emotions to soothe, but the recognition, okay, you didn't mean it. I'm still grumpy with you, but I recognize you didn't mean it that way.
I think that that's different from the intellectual thing.
Yes. Yes, it's sort of an emotional maturity of recognizing that emotions are not the
Uh,
arbiter of truth.
I love how we're rediscovering um, traditional values. Yeah, like what you really want is to find a young virgin who's from a good family, so she's not fucked up. Hmm. I think I've heard that before. You know, has a good upbringing, so she's not all bent out of shape about emotions and is able to have conversations. Um, doesn't have to be like super educated, but needs to be able to like have a conversation and be somewhat interesting, so not boring piece of paper. And then needs to not be fucked up from previous relationships, hence the pure virgin archetype.
So there's also value. Now, I'm not certain on this, so let's explore it. Value in two people who are each have some baggage coming together and healing each other
Yes.
and becoming closer that way. There's a
Yes, my wife and I were that.
there's a hero savior archetype in that and a potential for a dysfunctional relationship.
I would say, yeah, I would say yes, but I would also make the asterisk that from childhood, probably not from previous relationship,
Hmm. Hmm.
because sexual relationship, I'll make that distinction. When I talk about like being with previous people, I mean sexual act. That's the barrier. Um,
Because I've got almost certainly remaining issues thanks to my ex. So how does that apply in the reverse? It's not fair to
I
expect a
don't think it
certain.
affects. I don't think it affects men as it the same way it does women.
Hmm.
I don't really have a basis for that, but I do firmly believe that it is more of an issue for women than for men. And I think I don't know. I don't really have anything to back that up with.
The tendency for emotion versus logic to come to the fore first in the mind.
Yeah, that is what came up in my head, was that a man can decide to be with you, or be with a woman and be like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this and and like temptation can come up and he can be like, nope, I made a vow, I will stand by honor. Yeah, it's a lot harder for a woman who's more driven by emotion. And
But at the same time, a guy, I'm just
yeah,
trying to
I don't
balance
know.
that with
It
the
is
other
a
side.
balance. I don't think it's not like it only affects women and then men get away scot free from that. I don't think that's. But
Yeah, sometimes guys
I
run
think
away with
that
their hormones and cheat and
yeah, I
mm,
think that that is more to do with problems in childhood than problems in relationship. So, because okay, here's an example from how I'm aware, from what I am aware, a man can love his wife legitimately and cheat on her. That's a thing apparently. Whereas for women, that's not possible. There is one person that they love at any point in time, and if they're cheating on their partner, it's not their partner.
in the sense of to draw it out, a man could have a polygamous relationship set up where he loves multiple women.
No,
Mm.
no, I think man can only love one at a time. But my point is that man will sleep with people with women he does not
Ah,
love,
mm.
and I think for women it's the other way around.
A woman, so you're laying it out as a woman will love whoever she sleeps with, where a man will.
I think women
Mm.
will sleep with whoever they love,
Ah, yes, yes. Yeah, because the pattern
and
of
then if you apply that to the women sleeping around, and then how they have problems with love
mm,
and like how they're emotional wreck, you can kind of see how that lines up.
and how many sexless marriages there are these days.
Yeah, that might have something to do with her not sleeping with you, but someone else,
Or if she's got enough
and just
self-control
not
not to
wanting to
do
deal with the.
that, she's still
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's not. I don't believe in that though.
Mm.
Like, if you're in a marriage and she's not sleeping with you, that might last for a year or two, max. But it's not going to last forever. We got urges, and they will be fulfilled one way or another.
Mm.
They will just get more and more desperate, and tensions will build.
Oh, this image I got that I saw described in a book of the an old spinster who is convinced that every man she sees is um, trying or wanting to take her and ravish her, and she's constantly complaining to the police or something about it, and the town constable's
Yeah,
just tired of it because no
yeah,
one wants to, but she wants everyone to because she's
yes, yeah. And
and
she actually wants them to in the fantasy.
yeah, because she's in the
It's
position that
yeah,
we talked about modern women being put in by being lied to and how they
yeah. And
will be
that's what
best
a
impacted.
majority of our generation is going to be when they're older.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's very easy to have sex. It's very hard to find a wife. Maybe you should do what the passport bros are doing. Have you seen that meme?
Looking overseas.
Yeah, yeah. Going to another country where the women aren't fucked in the head, finding a good, honest, down to earth traditional woman, marrying her, and then bringing her back or staying there with her.
Not something I've ever felt
I,
comfortable with.
I know it's a half joke,
Okay.
but you know the point sort of. illuminates the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
God. I've been saying to my wife a lot in the last few days about, like, how much I'm just really happy to be married. We had this last night. We were supposed to record last night, but, my wife has, what do you call it, morning sickness, whatever,
Mm.
nausea from pregnancy,
Mm.
because we have a third child on the way.
Clap,
So
clap, clap,
she
clap.
Yes, thank you. Hoping to have a son, but too soon to tell. But she was, what was it? Yeah, she was having the morning sickness so that I cooked dinner, and that's why we didn't record. And then we ate dinner and we watched a bit of a movie together that we both liked. And we sort of had this moment of, like, sitting on the couch making jokes, watching this silly movie. Um, and I just had this moment of expressing to her how happy I am to be married, to not have to worry about any of this shit. To be like, we've got it, game done, got each other, we'll have each other forever, we get along perfectly, perfect match, all of that. We have fun, love all of the other things that I can't mention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta have some ones. And this conversation is, like, just making me feel that more, and at the same time making me feel, like, really bad for you being
Oh, yes,
in
woe
the
is me.
situation you're in. Yeah, worry, woe is me.
Yeah, well,
Um,
you can help
Look,
me practice and get
I still
better at
reckon
it.
you can come out. Yeah, I still reckon you can come out on top pretty. I won't say pretty easily. It is pretty easy, but it's just, you got the feelings of pain and loneliness in the meantime. Although from our discussion earlier, maybe that's more of a me problem than a general man problem.
Oh, no,
So
no, no,
maybe you
no.
don't have that so much.
No,
Okay,
my
I
emotions
didn't want
tend
to
to,
assume.
yeah, yeah, fair enough. My emotions tend to swing, um, oh, they're dulled, so I have a bit of trouble perceiving what an emotion actually is when I feel it. It's like, emotion. What the hell is this? And then just got to try and
Okay,
work
does
out
it feel like you're drowning in it, even though you don't know what it is?
when it bursts out. Yeah, yeah, it's and
Bursts out. That's interesting. That reminds me of our conversation the other day about my thin ice problem.
yeah,
Maybe that's worth looking into for yourself as well, because that's
yeah.
exactly what it described, was bursting out from underneath, and then the rest of the time knowing it's there, kind of feeling it, but not knowing what it is until it breaks through. So maybe you got a similar thing going on there.
Maybe, yeah. The way that when things do come up, maybe it's because I pull them when they come. Like I've built a habit of, oh, here's an emotion. Right, what are you? Let me deal with you. And so I go deep into it, and then rather than just being, oh, yeah, I'm feeling a bit lonely, it's, will I ever find someone? And the spiritual relationships I have helped a lot, and the recent friendly and loving as a friend, the rejection helped a lot with that in the sense of, like, on the emotional level, it's very easy to go by, oh, this is what I experienced before, so this is what will happen again. And what I've experienced was not exactly the best. So having
Mm,
a, oh, well, that really wasn't that bad rejection. It
okay.
was, yeah.
So
So
I
I've
think
got
we should
hope at the
bring this
moment.
to. Yeah, good. I was just going to say, I think we should bring this to a close.
Mm,
And I think we should do that by saying, have hope. Because I'm pretty confident that, yes, you will find someone and it'll be a good someone and it'll work.
yeah. Hope
And
hope's
you
a word
can do
that's
that.
messed up a lot these days, so I want to expand on
Okay,
that just a
let's take
bit.
hope out of that.
No, no, I like it because um, hope.
No, hope implies that there's a possibility it won't happen.
it can be the determination to make the best of the situation
Okay. I want to tell
and a
you,
belief in a possible
you
good
are going
outcome.
to find someone. You're going to find someone right, and you're going to do it by making yourself more appealing and by when you get any form of date from that appealing manifestation, asking very difficult questions to make her uncomfortable and to be willing to discard or push aside anyone who does not meet your criteria from those questions,
Yeah,
assuming that the criteria are things that are the right ones.
yeah. I've got that
And don't
vaguely
sleep with her.
sketched out in about that form. It's not deeply
Yeah.
enunciated, but yeah, working on it.
And you keep doing that until you find someone that you get along with, and then don't sleep with her, and then get married.
Yeah. Aspects of
Yeah.
myself are rather upset at the rest of me for agreeing with that.
Haha. Get wrecked. Um,
That's the
Another
attitude,
point I
yeah.
wanted to make before I go. The intellectual compatibility thing is down on the tier list from the practical stuff, but it's also down on the tier list from humor.
Hmm.
That's more important than being able to have interesting conversations, being able to laugh together and have your humor and her humor work together in a way that works. That's what you want.
Yeah, because
If you can be silly in the way you want to be silly and it makes her laugh and she likes it and she can do the same with you, then you got a match.
yeah,
Because that's like 90% of the interactions in a stable marriage, I think, is humor.
because the stuff about the intellectual not being the most important, it made me think of something that our mutual friend had in the relationship dynamic that I had with her, where she told me that most of the time when I would be talking about something I was interested in, she was not listening. And I was like, oh, that's fine. I just need to talk it out. And
Oof.
that worked well.
Okay. Um, hmm.
It's like the pressure of the idea I'm thinking of builds up in my head, and I just need to vent it out. I don't necessarily need constructive criticism and analysis, but I need to vent it out, and
Yeah.
then I'm like,
I
ah,
think
that's better.
was a step beyond that. When you're in a functional relationship, even if the person isn't interested, they listen
Mm,
and they will be happy that you're happy
mm,
and excited that you're excited. Like very often I have things like this with my wife where like I'll be really excited about a thing and I'll explain it and then I'll feel stupid because I feel like I did a childish thing. And she's like, "No, that was great. I don't care about it at all, but you do." And that makes it like it's cute kind of thing.
yeah, yeah, I want
Where, you
that.
know, it's like that's I love that, I think is generally the response. I don't care about the thing, but I love that you do and that you're excited because your face lights up. And I love it when that happens.
Mm,
So,
yeah,
you know, I can say things to her that she's not interested in at all. But as long as I'm like into it, she's genuinely happy to let me play it out. And it's the same vice versa. She'll do the same with me. But she's so happy and excited. I'm really happy that she's like that she's feeling that. So I'm not going to, you know. And I listen even if it's not interested and engage too, a
mm,
little bit.
yeah, I want that.
We You'll get there. It is not a possibility, it is a certainty. You do not have the option of failure.
Yeah, well, believing that certainly increases the chances of success.
Yeah, it's a when, not an if question. I can
Mm,
tell you that off the bat. I know you don't think super highly of yourself. And oh, sounds
Yeah.
like you gotta go.
Yeah,
To
as
be
you.
fair, there's a lot of things you need to work on,
Yep.
but once worked on, yeah, you're actually pretty up there. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
Well, we might be able to work on them face to face while recording sometime next time. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe that's something we do off air because I don't want to like be a bit brutal on camera, but
Yep.
not camera. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Find some soft axioms to poke hard.
Yeah, yeah. I got some critiques for you.
Yeah. Well, I won't not defend myself appropriately, but at the same time, I will enjoy the testing to find the weak points.
Full image, mate. That's all I need to say for now. Image.
Okay. Well, good night and until next time. And yes, this was enjoyable and fruitful and yeah,
A little all over the place,
yes,
but that's entertaining.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow. Wanted to go to bed ages ago, so yeah, let's call it a quit. And
same
I
here.
shall talk to you next week.
Yep. Bye.